Hello and welcome to First Flight, a Star Trek Enterprise rewatch podcast where we are watching and discussing each episode of Enterprise in succession.
First Flight is a proud member of the Tricorder Transmissions Network.
This is Commander Tucker of Enterprise. We've got some information you're going to want to hear.
Welcome, Enterprise fans. I'm your co-host, Chris.
And I'm your co-host, Abby.
And tonight, we are discussing Anomaly, the second episode of Season 3. Anomaly was written by Mike Sussman and directed by David Straighten. It aired on September 17th, 2003. But before we begin our discussion, we need to issue a read alert.
Tactical alert. All hands to stations.
There are potential spoilers ahead. We might end up talking about any part of the series at any time, so you have been warned. And now, for a summary of the episode, it's time for the Captain's Log. Okay, Abby, let's go.
Captain Starlog Supplemental.
Please. What is a poem?
Poetry is an art form that uses words put together in new and unexpected ways, sometimes in rhyme.
All right, so I got the haiku challenge this time, and man, I had a lot of syllables that I wanted to throw into these because there was so much going on with this. And again, I really wish that we had some more people like Phlox or Trip who have one syllable names, but I decided to go for the bigger ideas in the haiku this time and keep the names out of it. It really helped my counting. So here we go. Physics not constant. Pirates force desperate choices. Sphere adds new layer.
You got it all. I mean, that's really good.
Oh,
Especially
thank
the
you.
pirates force desperate choices, and then Sphere adds new layer. I really do think you captured a lot of the episode there. So that was great.
Well, I was trying because I kind of felt like there's three chunks of this episode, and I had three lines, so it lined up really nicely this time.
I am disappointed by the absence of punctuation, but we'll move on.
It was late when I came up with this one.
No, perfect. It's perfect. So, anyway, it's time to deploy our subspace amplifiers and get into this episode. We'll start with a quick chat about the cold open and then head into our pros and decons section. Each of us will share 3 of our favorite parts of the episode, and then, if there are things that don't quite gel with us, we'll have a discussion on any decons from the episode. You might hear a dog bark in this discussion if somebody's Porthos pick is mentioned, but we'll still discuss them later on in more depth.
Okay, let's get into this episode because there is a lot to talk about. And as always, we start with the cold open. Chris, what are your thoughts on how this episode starts?
I love that Porthos is our focus,
Yes.
right? It's like when animals know a storm is coming, and I really love that that is still true here, that dogs are anomaly detectors.
They're
Right?
like canaries in the coal mine.
There you go. So yeah, I really loved the focus on Porthos. I loved all the low angles. There's a
Yeah.
lot of mystery built in just how the camera is framing everything across the whole ship as the anomaly is rolling through corridors, up at all of it is all low angle, and it's really fun but also disorienting. And I think that's the point. So I loved all that. I loved the book falling, Phlox's menagerie being unsettled, the food springing.
Food
uh,
flying, food
yeah,
flinging.
yes. The coffee cup slow-mo was awesome. And the coffee cup has a shadow on the desk still, and the coffee itself is shimmering at different angles as the camera moved. Like they did a good job
Yeah.
rendering the coffee, and that was good. And like I said, I really loved that bulbous rolling corridor.
Hmm.
That it was probably a simple effect, really, but they really did a good job rushing through the corridor at people with that effect. So it was a really captivating cold open. What say you?
Well, I agree with so much of it. And my very first chunk says Porthos and the book. So we're right on track with that one. And I completely agree with how I liked this rolling anomaly. It almost felt like you were on a marble track or a roller coaster going through the ship with it. And it felt dangerous and unpredictable. And I think that's exactly the mood of this entire episode is dangerous and unpredictable. And
Yeah.
I liked how it mirrored what was to come later. And of course, I noticed the food when they flung it, and it was definitely spaghetti and meatballs day because multiple people had spaghetti and meatballs, and they looked like they had some sort of like green bean or something. And I'm thinking to myself, I bet you that's because they knew it was going to fly up and like stay up in the air for slightly longer, and all those long skinny things look really nice in those shots. So I was like, of
Yeah.
course it was spaghetti and meatballs and green beans day. And there were some other things in there too, but that was the majority of it. And that just always makes me happy when there's some good food. And I really like Trip's like cool, and it's not cool because it's obviously because the ship is broken from the anomaly, but I love that the engine does the like static ball lightning thing. Like it makes me think when you used to go to the old museum and you'd put your hand on the little ball and
Yeah.
you'd look like Einstein. Like it was just neat. And that would have been neat if they just left it there, but they connect it later on and he uses that to his
Yes.
advantage later on. And that is such a neat thing that is set up here in the cold open. And I really appreciated that because they didn't have to do that, but they explained it and it connected and it made it so much better later on. So this is a really good cold open and it really gets the tone of the episode across in a short time.
For real. Yeah. Like you said, it really sets the stakes and there's some danger and unpredictability. And that's perfect for an episode entitled Anomaly.
Mm-hmm. I have to say, I really enjoy the titles of this season a lot. I feel like they really align a lot of the time. And I find and maybe it's because a lot of them are shorter, but I
Mhm.
feel like they really did a good job. And maybe that's because they had a plan for this whole season. But I
Yes.
really feel like the titles took a notch up this season. And this one is a prime example of how it matches perfectly.
Well, and I mean, consider how many spatial anomalies are at the center of many Star Trek episodes.
Oh yeah, there's a whole Trek ranks on it.
Right? Yeah. So it's really cool that we finally have an episode just called Anomaly, and there's some pretty good anomalies here.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
they're up to no like there's a purpose behind these anomalies. We don't know that yet, right? But
Mm-hmm.
it's good. It's good stuff.
All right. Well, speaking of good stuff, let's jump right into our pros. Chris, start us off tonight because I know you're really excited to talk about this one.
Yeah, my first pick, and I struggle with the picks because there was too many good things to pick. So I just kind of went with my gut, and so there might be more amazing things I could talk about, but the first one I settled on was the Osarian's backstory, how the
Mm,
expanse changes you, and it already has changed Archer. But he came into the expanse ready to be changed. Like that conversation between Trip and Archer at the end
yep.
of the expanse, he's like, I'm open for anything and everything. And then the
Hmm.
expanse is like, okay, well, let's test that.
Yeah.
Now we know he hasn't fully lost his morality because he lets the Asarian go at the end. But I really enjoyed the Asarian's backstory, and it made me really think a lot about the Void from Voyager. Got
Mm,
strong the Void vibes from this episode because in the void, for those that might not remember, aliens get sucked into this void and there's nothing in there, so they just have to, and they can't get out, and they just have to prey on newcomers to get materials and resources. It's
hmm.
the same story here for these guys. So automatically you have a little sympathy or at least understanding from where they're coming from that they were
Yeah.
forced into piracy, which Archer will be later. Right?
Hmm.
So I don't feel for these guys. They're bad guys now because they're making these choices and they've learned to kill, the whole story he's gone through. But I just found that a really effective and powerful way to set the stakes even higher now for the expanse. because you can't get out. So
Yeah.
when Trip later says, "Oh, this is a one-way mission," that part of the Asarian story is confirming that, or adding credence to that claim that Trip is making. So it does a lot, and I really appreciated that backstory, especially the distortion of his face, again adding to
Yeah.
the threat of the anomalies too. So I've rambled on about it. What are your thoughts?
Well, that's a really good thread to pick up on in there. And I think it kind of goes with how this story and the interactions between Orgoth and Archer go through this entire episode, and you almost see Archer's layers of desperation growing as it goes every time they talk. I mean, obviously the airlock scene is a huge one, but even in this first one, he starts by being polite, by saying, "Please stand up." And then when he does, he says, "Thank you." I mean, he starts being as human as he can be while doing what needs to be done. And
Yeah.
that's really nice. But by the end of that conversation, and when he's going, "You're not prepared to kill," and then Archer goes, "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to find your ship. And if that
Yeah.
causes me remorse, it's something I'm going to live with." Like, you were
Yeah.
100% right that is exact. He came into this expanse knowing that if he had to make tough choices, that he would sacrifice his comfort, his morals, his stability, his life, whatever it took for the greater good. And it's that whole theme that goes through this season of, can you save humanity if you lose yours? And this is one of the first times that you see that you see him struggling. And yes, at the end he does let him go, and he doesn't kill him, and he's got these moments where we see the Archer we've known for 2 seasons battling with what he feels he has to do, and he feels like he's losing himself. It was one of those pivot moments, and I think he's mourning not just the attack and the people they lost, but how they were beforehand, which is very common after a horrific trauma. And you see that in this episode on his face, in his actions, in his body language, and it's one of the first times you do. So this was a really nice first call out.
Yeah, this is like Star Trek's version of Archer becoming Jack Bauer light. Right?
Yeah.
And I love how Malcolm is like, it's depressurizing, right?
Yeah.
Like we said in this Xindi episode, he's this calm, level-headed note of caution.
Yep.
It's pretty cool.
Yep.
So,
And would you have thought that 2 seasons ago, when all he wanted to do was blow up some asteroids? You would not.
yeah, no.
It's bravo to Malcolm. Malcolm Reed is good at his job, everybody.
Let me write that down. That's a good idea.
Yeah, I might forget that one if I don't.
But I do need to write down what you just said before, that can you save humanity if you lose yours? What a pithy question. I love it.
Well, that's what I feel like this whole season is an examination of. Or like, how do you save humanity and keep yours at the same time, if you want to phrase it more positively? And how many of our crew are going to go through things like this? It's tough, but it's really interesting to look at.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So that was my first pro. What is your first pro?
All right. Well, I'm going to keep it kind of in the same vein and keep it a little heavy for a minute here. But I have to say that crewman Fuller dying in this, the first real cost to them, the first death, the first one who doesn't make it on screen. I mean, there have been serious injuries. There have been people who come up with wood transported in their skin. Like, things have been bad. Like, Malcolm got pierced through the leg by a Romulan mine. I mean, things have happened. But somebody dies. Like, somebody that part of the us, the family, dies. And we get serious flux. Like, we get so much serious flux this season, and this is the first time that we really get him in that I have to talk to you about someone I didn't save. One of us I didn't save, and it's just a different shade. And when you watch it, it's played so masterfully on his face. And I found some behind the scenes stuff that really backed this up. So Mike Sussman, who wrote the episode, he really wanted the crew to be in jeopardy, to be in danger. And here's the quote he said: "It was really important to kill somebody and to get the ship into really dire circumstances and show the audience that this arc this season is really going to be different." And he also responded to criticisms that there had been no casualties before, and people said that's not unrealistic. So he noted again, it was never intentional. It was just that whenever we tried to kill someone, it never seemed the right way to do it. So it never happened. And then it happened now. And I think he is right on both counts. Like, Enterprise was a hopeful show the first couple seasons, and now it is more of a quandary, a driven show. The tone has changed, and this showed it. This was the first true cost. This was Archer, besides the fake call to Buck Buckeye and Hoshi's head, the first time he's going to have to notify somebody's parents that someone under his command on this ship was gone.
Which is crazy to think about.
Yeah,
that they haven't lost anyone in 2 years. I don't think it's unrealistic, but it is something to note. It's notable for Archer to have kept.
Thank you, Phlox.
Archer and Phlox, yeah. I mean,
Yes.
it takes the
Well,
whole
all
crew
of them.
to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fancy flying, good communication, shooting stuff when necessary, good medicine, leadership, engines. It takes all of it. And yeah, that's why this one really hit. I mean, even it doesn't matter that it isn't somebody that we know well. It doesn't matter that, it's obviously plot exposition when Malcolm brings it up later. It's okay because we feel it because it was the first time. And that's just, it's a really important thing I felt like I needed to highlight it in a pro.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. If I categorize this one under Phlox, does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. Well, if it's okay, we're gonna get a little lighter and a little more fun in my next pick.
Absolutely.
So this pro is about just the pacing of the action sequences. They're pretty long in this episode, but so well paced and shot with low angles, like I said. The anomalies rolling through the ship. It's fun. It's fast. It's low angles. And then there's the action of investigating the derelict ship with some jump scares. It's quick. They're in and out. Like, there's not a lot of time lingering. The Enterprise piracy action sequence when they're just beaming into the ship and tagging things and beaming out made me think about the Void, but also concerning flight.
Yes,
Voyager.
concerning flight. Yeah.
Yes. A mechanical woman in a box. Not on Da Vinci's watch.
That's a great line too. That soundbite should be popping in right about now.
Revenge! Not today! Not on a Da Vinci's watch!
But I hadn't thought about the connection to concerning flight. That's a really cool one.
Oh my gosh, there's Voyager all over this. Equinox.
Yeah.
I have a whole list, so maybe I'll hit that later. But yeah, and then the climactic starship battle is really good and unique. This is the first time we have to be like within a kilometer of a ship for a long time and not damage a ship that we're fighting too much. It's so good, so much restraint, so much skill. Everyone is involved to complete this mission. So that is my second pick, the pacing of the action sequences throughout the episode. And there's a lot of them, and they're long, but they don't feel monotonous. They're really fun and exciting. I had a lot of fun with this one.
Yeah, well, and I like that we're talking about things coming back and repeating throughout the episode to make it feel cohesive. The score and the soundtrack in all those had some of the same pieces, so it helped it feel really cohesive, and it felt like the enemies, the bad guys, got a theme in this episode, and that was really powerful throughout.
Absolutely. The music did stand out quite a bit throughout this episode.
I'm going to put half a dog bark there.
Oh, yes. All right.
Sorry, Porthos, I don't mean to cut you off.
All right. So, what is your second pro?
All right. Well, I was going to do this as my third one, but I think it flows really nicely here. So let's talk about that last battle for a little bit more. And let's talk about how, even though they didn't have huge parts to talk in this episode, Hoshi and Travis saved the blessed day in this. I mean, she's the one who notices the iconography, realizes that they
Yep.
have the database, and then figures out how to get in, how to get to it while they're flying. The connection is spotty, manages to get 90% of it during a battle, which is through the encryption, through all of the, searching. In fact, the woman is a genius, an absolute genius. And she is so poised in this. Like, again, if you think back to the second episode of season 1, 2 seasons ago, totally different Hoshi. The growth has just been beautiful. And Travis gets to show off exactly why he is the person who flies this ship. Like, he goes up to the sphere, he goes into the sphere, he gets them through this battle, he keeps them within a kilometer. When they have to back out a little bit, he comes back. Like, this is what I felt was kind of missing last week. They didn't have huge parts, but they had integral parts. They had important parts. They had something to do that shows why they're there and important. And anytime that Hoshi and Travis save the day, I've got to call it out because it doesn't happen nearly enough. Or when it does, it doesn't get nearly enough recognition. I mean, come on. Travis got them in and out of that cloaking field during this battle. I mean, it was just beautiful. And so extra special shout out, tick those off on your data collection boxes. Hoshi and Travis this episode.
Yeah, totally. And Travis, he's the guy that found the manifest too
Yes,
on the
exactly.
sphere.
Yes.
So he is integral to this plot. And the pilot seat is his realm.
It is. They're in a field surrounded. Look at that.
They really were.
If you've ever heard Melissa Navia talk after that episode came out, after Subspace Rhapsody came out, she is now gunning for the part 2 where she gets her own song and can play her banjo with it. So every time I hear that line now, I just think about it with a banjo behind it. And I'm like, oh, I love that. I guess Anson Mount plays banjo too, so they could possibly do like a bluegrass song. I think part 2 has to come.
Yes, season 5.
Yeah, season 5. There we go.
Yeah.
All right, off track. Back up. All right, so that was my second pro. How are you going to finish us up with your pros?
Yeah, this is the sphere and the added mystery, the layer it adds, right? Referring to your haiku. I love it. It's this, if the season is about connecting all these dots, this is just, for the Xindi, this is just a dot that doesn't connect yet. It's just out there. And they're not sure they don't even know what this is about. It's just like a curiosity. Whereas in another season, the whole episode would be about exploring and investigating the sphere, right? And to Paul, you can see throughout the whole episode, she wants to do that.
She's
right?
itching to get down there and explore. Yes.
And even Archer, like you can see in moments, like head into orbit. But he's not allowing himself to be the explorer. He's really not. Which is sad, but understandable. And just good storytelling. So that's my pick. It is the mystery of the spheres.
I love the spheres. I think it is such a cool thing. And I remember during the season when I first watched it, and you realize that this wasn't just some one-off, geometric shape that was supposed to be ripping off the Borg. This was integral to everything. And it takes a little while to get there. And then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute. And when you go back and rewatch now, knowing what's coming, knowing how it ends, and seeing how they just drop this in like it's nothing, and it turns out to be so important. It's wonderful. And yeah, this is that mystery kind of underneath the tension of we've got to get all our stuff back. I mean, they don't have enough fuel to keep going if they don't. So it can't be the biggest focus. But for those of us who aren't dealing with that desperation, it sure is the thing that sticks with you and makes you go, huh, all right, I wonder what that was all about. And then as the layers come in, oh, it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And I'm all about geometric shapes in space. I'm ready for like a pyramid, a tetrahedron, a dodecahedron. Like, let's put some more out there. They look really good.
That's why I love the the gold starships in Stargate because they're
Yeah.
pyramid shapes and all the like, very different kind of starships. So yeah. And that sphere, because it's white, it just looks so cool in space, such a contrast. It's really
Yeah.
interesting to look at. And the interior is there's quite a scope to it. It made me think of the interior of the Voth ship in Distant
Yeah.
Origin. I just love the size of that. And this
Mhm.
is similar to that. And then Dyson Sphere is always a warm connection in our hearts as Star Trek fans, right?
Absolutely. Well, and then we've got the hyperfield from season 4 of Discovery too. Like you got to give a minute
Yeah,
out of that. I
yes.
mean, there's all sorts of interesting geometric shapes with interesting properties in Star Trek. So this can add into it, and I can't wait to talk more about the spheres and all of their nuances as we get into this season. And when they crumple like tinfoil balls at the end, that's the best thing too. That's like a
Wow.
moment where you do a data. Yes.
I don't remember that. Okay.
Sorry for the spoiler, but
No, I
that is one
mean,
of my favorite moments of this entire season. They just go.
I can picture it now, but yeah, I don't know this season as much as I should, even though it's
Well,
been a year or so since I rewatched the whole thing. But cool, I can't wait to discover.
we'll give it another year, and you'll be able to be an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
All right, should I finish us up?
Please.
Okay, so this was me trying to cheat because I also had a lot of things I wanted to put in here. And it made me think back to last season where I called out an episode where I really felt that there were a lot of paired conversations that highlighted the story. And I felt that again here. And as I'm going through, I'm like, yes, because there are so many little bits of conversations in here. I mean, we've got Archer and Trip having the conversation about, how's the engine going? The laws of physics don't apply. Are you worried about something? Just get the weapons on. We've got multiple scenes of Archer and T'Pol updating about, what was stolen or what's going on the sphere and all that. And those are beautifully done. We have T'Pol or Trip and Flux talking about the mud leeches,
Yeah, that was funny.
mud leeches. That was hilarious. Really well done. And there was the Trip and Malcolm scene in the mess hall, which was really well done. And this isn't just because there's lots of cool pairings. It's because I realized that I wanted to talk about how each of these conversations was a whole bunch of plot exposition and moving the story along. But at the same time, every single one of them had multiple character beats in it that were beautiful, and that you saw these relationships that we've spent years analyzing at this point. And you've seen the amount of trust that's there, the levity that can go back and forth, the humor, the acceptance of decisions, the emotionality, the deep friendships, the trust. Like there are all the pieces of these great relationships. Even Phlox kind of, nudging Trip the way he wants him to go. They were all in these pairs of conversations. So it was just really nice to see that this was crafted so well that it wasn't just about the story, it was also about the characters. Every time there was a pair of our major 7 on screen, they were really giving us that, not just story. And that was a beautiful part of this episode.
100%. Little dog bark here too.
Oh, nice. Man, we've cut Porthos in half twice tonight. You want the top or the bottom?
Oh man.
I suppose we could do left or right.
Yeah, let's do over that. Yeah. No dogs were harmed in the making of this podcast.
No, especially not Porthos. He brought us joy from the very first moments.
Absolutely. Yeah. To be in all seriousness, this is one of the reasons I love this episode. So that's all I'll say for now.
All right. Well, I look forward to a bit more later.
All right. Well, let's talk about what we don't quite like, and that's the decons, the parts of the episode that just didn't gel with us. So, Abby, you want to start us off?
Okay. So, again, I have a silly musing here. Who cleaned up the coffee when it eventually came down? Like, I feel so bad. There's got to be like the people who detail the ship after the sewage last week, clean up the coffee, like deal with the singes on the carpet after the something, sparks because there's an anomaly. Like, I really would like to give a gold star to whoever the Enterprise cleanup and like aesthetics and housekeeping crew are, because they've got to be just as busy as Daniels was, as in the galley. So that was funny because he brings the cup down because he's mad. Archer gets all mad and slams his cup, and I totally get that, and well justified. But I just was wondering about the actual coffee. If I was Archer, I would have tried to scoop it back in the cup and then slammed it. I don't know if it would have worked, but that's I have cleaned up enough children's spills to go, God, if you can catch something before it hits, this is going to be so much easier.
If he tries to touch the liquid, would he grow disgusting fingernails?
Oh, I sure hope not. I'm so
Ugh.
glad that's only once we've seen that with time distortion, because I don't need to see that again.
When
Icky.
you mentioned that on Infinite Diversity, talking about facing the strange, face the strange,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I thought the same thing when I watched that scene. I'm like, oh, they're hiding his hand because it's gonna be disgusting fingernails.
I'm okay with them not having done that. That I'm fine. That doesn't have to happen again.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
But all right, speaking of other things that don't have to happen again yet still do. So I would like to first start with a kind of semi-pro that when Reed and Archer and the Makos are all getting suited up in their absolutely gorgeous EV suits, which I will call out every time,
Mhm.
they are all equal opportunity bare-skinned. Like, we get Bakula without a shirt on for a chunk of this scene, right?
Yeah, and
So,
he's built.
okay, yes, man, he has not skipped shoulder days, that's for sure.
Mm-mm.
Wow. Like,
Mm-mm.
you see him like lifting stuff up, and I'm like, that's not even my thing, and I was impressed. So
Mhm.
good job, Bakula, on that one. But here's the thing that bothered me, and we've talked about this before. But okay, that female Mako, right? She's got her
Mhm.
little sparkly undersuit on. They all have sparkly undersuits. That's fine. I could go with hers bared her midriff if it was some sort of like shelf bra or something that was supposed to be like, supportive undergarment, not just, hey, here you have a belly. And oh, by the way, we know you're not wearing a bra and it's chilly in space. Like, oh, just stop. Stop, UPN. It's just because everybody else had full length sparkly silver when they got to it. Like,
Mm, mm.
it just, and we could talk about this, and we will talk about this with the pajamas and the neural pressure and all that. It would have been so much better if it had just had a lighter touch, if it hadn't been so gratuitous. But I understand that this was the network, and this is, UPN is starting to realize that it's hard to run a network this year.
Mm.
They're pushing for things that can get eyeballs in any way possible because they're kind of starting to think they're sinking. So I get it, but I also notice it and go, it's just that disappointing sigh.
But
Man, it really is the early 2000s.
yes, but let's imagine for a thought experiment that decons never happened. So we had and the shiny pajamas, all that, it hasn't existed on Enterprise. This is a very inoffensive expression of that bad
Yeah.
habit crutch of Enterprise that it didn't bother me at all. And it might be because the female Mako isn't, busty. It's not bursting out. It's not in
Yeah.
your face, right, at all. So it didn't bother me. But I mean, definitely, if they have shirts, then she should have a regular shirt too. I mean,
Yes, she
if
should.
it's a uniform.
Yes, exactly. It is a layer for under this EV suit. Probably, I'm assuming, for some sort of moisture wicking or
Yeah.
like temperature control.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure her abdomen has things in there that need to both be
Yeah.
temperature controlled and moisture wicked. I mean, just saying.
Yeah. But it was the most I really enjoyed the scene. There was a lot of movement. Archer and Malcolm were strong, not just physically, but like just strong leaders of these elite fighters that we saw last episode. And these guys are still kind of like wet behind the ears in space. So it was really interesting dynamic. I took a lot from that scene. And I don't know, it didn't bother me too much because it didn't seem as exploitative. The camera did, of course, pan up her body as to establish the scene. I did notice that for sure. But
Hmm.
yeah. So I definitely understand this being a decon. But I found it so much better than all the other decon scenes that it didn't register much for me as a negative.
Well, she was saying while we're seeing this, she's talking about how she did a 6-week tour on Jupiter Station and the
Yeah.
grav plating went out. So she
Hmm.
she is the most prepared and competent of
Yeah.
everybody besides Archer and Reed in this room, right? So it was such a contrast. Like, could she just not have been this, super tough, super smart, ready to go woman whose belly button I did not see? That's all.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah. Definitely.
and okay, so I don't know if this counts as a decon or not, but so when we're talking about the brig scene and Archer is torturing or taking the air out, right?
Hmm.
I really appreciate the intensity. I like what it's going for. I like all that. I I really wish Malcolm had like tried one more time or like moved over. Like I felt like I wanted him to do something else to try to stop him from crossing the line. I know he was ordered. I know all that, but they also know that their relationship has developed enough
Mm.
that he might have. I just wanted one more time. It could have ended the same way. It could, I just it felt as much as Malcolm is the protocol guy.
Hmm.
This he was also realizing that this is someone he knows and respects and whose morals and ethics he knows and respects. You don't just try once, even in a situation like that. I would have at least had one more sir. Just that's all it would have taken for me because I just felt like it
Mm.
didn't honor the relationship and the trust that they built last year.
Well, but think about it. Last episode, Archer dressed him down about the room, the
Yeah.
command center in front of T'Pol in a very uncharacteristic way. So like there might be some tension here.
Yeah, but this was life or death.
Oh, I agreed, but Malcolm's not Chakotay.
That's
Right.
true.
I
That's
really
fine.
got Equinox. I got Equinox vibes here with Janeway
Yeah.
and that crewman from the Equinox and those little spirit creatures. Um, I Yeah, it was tough to watch, but it was supposed to
But it's
be.
supposed to be
Yeah.
tough to watch. So
Yes.
like that's not and it sticks with you in a way that makes you
Hmm.
uncomfortable, but that's what it's supposed to do. Like
Hmm.
I guess I really enjoyed seeing that relationship between Archer and Reed grow so much last year. And we got
Yes.
so many
Yes.
little moments that I guess I was just hoping that even if Archer has been nothing but a cranky beast for the past, 6-8 weeks they've been in the expanse, everybody has moments like that in their life where things are going wrong, when they're super stressed, when the people who know them and care about them let it go and still do what's best for them because they have that type of relationship. And I feel like they've been through enough stuff together. Like I said, all it would have taken was one more sir, or are you certain, or just one more time, because I feel, and I know it was what, 12 seconds left, 20 seconds left, whatever it was. It
That's a
was very
lot,
short.
but that's a lot in
If
that kind of moment,
Yes,
right?
yes, it
Yeah.
feels long. And that's another way that they did that scene so well, is that it
Hmm.
felt like an eternity when it was
Hmm.
30 seconds. So that's all. And like I said, I'm not even sure if it counts as a con as much as that I'm disappointed that it wasn't there because I've really enjoyed seeing it in the past.
Yeah, I like that perspective of trying to see the growth of those two men's relationship in that
Hmm.
moment. And
Hmm.
maybe we do see it. Maybe we do see that Malcolm over 2 years has grown to trust Archer,
Yeah.
even in this extreme moment. But yeah, I would have been totally happy with it, sir, or it's down to
Hmm.
point oh one atmospheres
Exactly.
or something like
Exactly.
that, right? Hmm.
One more throwaway line that wasn't just him stepping back and giving in immediately, just one more try. That's all it would have taken for that to have been
Yeah,
enough for me.
yeah, yeah. I like it. Yeah.
All right, so what about your cons for this one? Got a list? More floating coffee?
Yeah, my only note is N/A exclamation point.
That's awesome.
Nothing. I loved this episode. I can't
That's really
complain
cool.
about anything. Um, really, nothing's stuck out. If I have to hunt for a con, I'm not gonna choose it really. You know what I mean? These
Yeah.
cons need to be something that's glaring, that stood out. Often I watch these once. I did this one 3 times because I liked it. I would do I could watch it every day. I watched it once a
That's
day
cool.
for 3 days. I could have watched it today, but I did some Deep Space Nine instead. But yeah, nothing.
That's really exciting. It's very, very rare to have no
Yeah,
decons. So
I
I
know.
that's
Yeah.
well, and mine, like I said, mine were more musings and disappointments than cons.
Well,
So
yeah, and I
that's
mean, I
yeah.
I could have gone with the camera um slowly going up her body to establish the scene in the
Hmm.
as the Makos are getting dressed. That is a con, but I guess it just like I said, in contrast to the other ways they've done that kind of thing, it seemed pretty timid, not very offensive. Um, so by contrast. So anyway, no decons for me.
Well, that gets a golden carrot ball right there because that's really cool.
Yeah.
Mind if we take a look? Prettiest set I ever saw.
Well, we now have come, yep, to our newest section, the view screen on. This is the section where we honor a beautiful shot or graphic or moment from the episode that we want to highlight. And I had a terrible time picking this down because there were so many moments I wanted to call out. So, Chris, I'm glad you're starting us off tonight. Maybe you'll pick one and I won't feel so bad about cutting it off my list.
Yeah, this was hard because, like I said, the direction and the shot composition of this episode were just phenomenal. And the,
Hmm.
the use of low angles over and over again, it could be a trick that gets boring after a while, but it never did. It always heightened the moment. So, but I'm doing a ship shot. I try not to do that every episode, but I don't think I've done that in a bit. So, maybe since first flight. So, my view screen on for this episode is when the shuttle pod launches to the sphere with the Enterprise's dorsal side facing the camera. It's just so cool seeing the ship from that angle. It plays with our sense of gravity that, oh, this is the way space actually is. There's no up or down, like, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And of course, if there's a shuttle pod, I love it. It just looks good on screen. We have the sphere on screen. We have Enterprise on screen. We have a shuttle pod on screen. That's my view screen on pick.
Well, that was one of my choices. So I'm really glad you picked that one.
Good. Check that off your list.
All right. So my other one that I am not going to pick, but I have to call out is
Cheater.
I'm going to. Yep, totally cheating because I
And I
literally had like
endorse it.
six. Yep. I cut it down to three, right? So the last like 15 seconds of this episode after Archer says load the
Oh,
Xindi database and all
yeah.
the different colors are flashing in his face and he's in and out of the shadows and the greens and every once in a while there's like an amber and like a pink, that shot and his face, like it doesn't look like it's moving, but if you watch really carefully, he's got the tiniest little micro expressions. Like he
Hmm.
has obviously been hanging out with DePaul because the
Mm,
intensity and the lighting and everything in that moment is just epic. That's a really good shot. But
it is.
I
And
had to pick.
I remember seeing that on first run.
Mhm.
That shot
Yep,
sticks with you because it's very
it sure
unusual
does.
in Star
Yep.
Trek.
And it's moody. It leaves you unsettled at the end of the episode. And this is, the second time we've been left unsettled with an Enterprise episode, which was not the norm previously. So this is
Hmm.
really again showing us. I almost wish they had put these two back to back when they aired them
Mm,
originally, like they do with a lot of the series now, because this is
hmm.
that first chunk. It feels more
Yes.
complete. Last episode feels better with this episode right behind it where you're seeing that chunk. So I really enjoyed that about this. But back to my view screen. I picked a ship shot too, and it's a different one. And I don't pick ship shots very often, but this one, the first time I rewatched, I was like, holy bananas, this is gorgeous. So right after Archer says to Travis, outside the sphere, we're going to wait for them to find us instead of like following their ion trail. There is the most gorgeous shot that goes from like the top front of the NX-01 all the way across the ship top towards the back as the ship is flying forward and the sphere is decreasing in the background. And it is so detailed and it is so beautiful. And it was so unnecessary, but gorgeous. And like, that's a ship shot that makes me go, yeah. And so I had to pick that one. I had to pick that one.
Yeah, I had a strange experience with that shot the last time I watched it.
Okay.
Because there's a debate on the internet. You know, sometimes people have debates on the internet.
No.
and one of them is about view screens being big windows on bridges.
Yeah.
And yeah, in Discovery recently this season, we've had Michael in space falling towards Discovery's view screen window and then beaming into Discovery right before she's about to hit the window. What a cool sequence, right?
Uh-huh.
If this one shot in Enterprise was done today, we would be seeing inside the NX-01 bridge.
Yeah.
And this was a moment that I wanted that so bad. That would have been such a cool shot. And I've always kind of been on the camp a little bit like, I don't want the big window, but I really like the way they've done it in Enterprise. I mean, not Enterprise, in Discovery. I think I've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
So, this was the first time that I was craving the window on the bridge, and that was a cool little moment. So, yeah, good
cool
selection.
Well, thank you. I specifically noticed that the first time through, and then made sure. And one time I was rewatching, and I turned away at a second and missed part of it, and I went back 10 seconds. I'm like, nope, I need to watch this.
Yep.
Because it's just that pretty.
Oh, there's so many moments in this episode that you have to stop and watch.
Oh, yes.
This is full of that.
It's one that's hard to turn away from at any point.
Exactly. So we have come to the time where we discuss our favorite parts of the episode, our Porthos picks. Now, I think we heard Porthos yapping a little bit throughout the episode, so
probably because we were cutting him in half.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully Phlox has a leech or something that has a binding agent or something. Anyway.
That was really dark, sorry.
Yeah.
He's
gonna need another dog band-aid or a night in sick bay for that.
The little colored. Yes, that was adorable though.
Yes, it was. Yes. So we're gonna expand a little bit here on maybe what we hinted at before when Porthos was barking a bit. So, Abby, what is your Porthos pick for this episode? Expand and enlarge on something that has been just alluded to thus far.
All right, so I am very on brand this season because last time I did costumes and this time I'm doing the score. And I pointed out one point in the episode before that I really loved, but oh my God, the score in this episode is amazing. And
Yeah,
it's
it is.
a little bit more prominent than they are sometimes. There were all the drums and it had that pulsing rhythm to it, especially during the raids or during the battles or during the airlock or even during the montage of them getting all the stuff back from the sphere.
Yes.
It was cohesive. It was repeated themes, but not in a way that made it feel boring. It made it heightened. Like you knew what was going on because the music was giving you clues and helping with that that feeling. And it feels like, especially at the end when we were talking about that Xindi database moment, right? There is this kind of pounding dun-dun-dun-dun of synth drums, which I don't always like the synthetic instruments in wordless music, but for this episode especially, those drums that were there every time there was that tension, it those synth drums to me sounded like anxiety mixed with dread feels. And I feel like that was exactly what this episode had throughout so much of it, anxiety mixed with dread. And this was the most perfect score for it. Now, I know there's a couple cuts on some of the soundtracks that are out there, and thank you, Lala Records. Yes, and those are great, and I'm sure that they will be looped in here somewhere. But I would listen to this entire soundtrack. I thought to myself yesterday, and then I went, man, I would feel so keyed up after listening to this entire soundtrack. Like,
well, you listen to this song when you're going on a run or something.
Yes, because just the two tracks that I could pull and listen to on their own without anything else on top of them, you get that feeling. It's heart pounding. It's emotional. It is. You would guess what was going on to a certain degree in this episode just by hearing the music. You wouldn't have to know any of the rest of the story because it tells you the story. And I really, really like this one. And I tried to dance around and put something else here, and I was like, no, this one really is the score. It is amazing.
Yeah, it stood out to me. I really didn't get a chance to I wanted to listen to the episode again just for the score this time, make some notes, because I feel like there was more melody in this episode than we usually get on top of just the rhythmic, action beats, which were really well done and made me, the last time we really, really talked about music was Minefield, and it had those action beats that were really compelling. But often, we've said this before, this is no secret, there's a lot of wallpaper music in Star Trek, but I think season 3 is really going away from that and going to a lot more modern sound with more melody. So I'm excited to hear more music as we go through, and I have some long drives coming up soon. I'm gonna just sit in the car as I'm driving and listen to the episode just for the music.
Nice. Well, talking about how you said there's more melody, I have in my notes here too, I didn't say it before because it didn't quite fit, but whenever they're in sickbay, the music in sickbay reminded me so much of TOS. Like, it had those same kind of vibes to it, and that helped too. Like, there was just something about this that it just felt really known and yet really tense at the same time. So
there was definitely an emotional condor to it.
Yes. An emotional condor.
That's just for us now.
I have to tell you now, in my head, Dr. Miglimo is an emotional condor. Like, that is his species.
And you gotta love him because he just talks in food metaphors.
I know. It's the best. Like,
he has a great costume.
Oh, yes. And he can fluff that down.
Yes. Oh, my goodness.
You're in a real pineapple right now, Carol.
What does that mean?
Exactly.
Does that mean you're being aloof like Malcolm because it's pineapple?
Ooh, I had not connected that to a Malcolm reference, but that is now headcanon for me.
Yep. We're gonna
sort
talk
of
to Mike
prickly
McMahon.
but sweet on the inside.
Yes. Oh.
We should tweet it at him.
Okay. Yes. We're gonna put First Flight on the map.
There we go. Okay, so there was my Porthos pick, a well-deserved one if ever there was. And so I am super curious to what your other half of the bark meant.
All right, I have a long list for my Porthos pick.
Okay.
And please add anything that I miss, because I know you can. Because you've only watched this 15 times in 17 hours.
I'm not quite that bad. I did have to go to work this week.
Oh, okay, that's good. Snakeweed.
Yes, I'm so. It was too funny. It was too funny.
Share with our listeners what that's about. All
right, so I was doing a game with some kids that I work with, and we were putting together chunks of words, and one of them made the word snake, and then the next kid made the word weed, and all I could think of was Rafi. And so I'm like, hold on, guys, I'll take a picture of these. These are great words. What's the first thing I did? Sent it to Chris and went, oh my God, all I could think of is Rafi when I'm teaching my lesson on phonics. It was perfect.
Oh,
And
Ralphie.
and you know what? There are only a small number of people in the world who would understand that. So I'm
Yep.
glad that you were one of them who got the
Yep.
phonics and the Star Trek.
Exactly.
All right.
Okay, so my pick is that every member of the crew plays an important role in the story. And I feel
Yes.
like it's been some time since we've had an actual ensemble episode. We
Mm-hmm.
even get Enterprise's version of a conference room scene in this episode,
Yeah.
minus
Yeah.
Trip, right? And maybe Phlox, I don't remember. But I I love that Travis is being consulted. Hoshi is being
Yes.
consulted in this conference room scene.
Yes.
Like Malcolm, everyone's got a role. So I'm gonna just list out some of the major roles of each character. So Archer, I mean, obviously it's his show, but his major contribution to the episode is the interrogation scene.
Uh-huh.
That's memorable. Then Trip, the engineering, all the stuff, activating the anti-polarity with the electrical beams, shooting
So
out at the
cool.
people. That was clever, MacGyvering that
Climbing
situation.
on the warp core. He
Always
climbed on
good.
top of the warp core. That's always such, I mean, you
I
would
love
use the
it.
vertical space.
Yeah. And then also his scene with Malcolm is
Yeah.
fantastic.
Oh, that
And
makes my heart happy.
exactly, they have not let that thread of that relationship go yet. T'Pol is advising Archer on the Asarians and providing updates on the sphere, like you said earlier. Hoshi, is analyzing the derelict starship's database,
Mm-hmm.
finding iconography, like spotting these tiny little things. She's downloading the Xindi database, like you said, giving feedback during conference room scene. Travis is flying shuttle pod,
Woo.
finding the manifest, doing the dogfight with the Osarians,
Mm-hmm.
finding the
Mm-hmm.
manifest, like I said, all of that stuff. And then Phlox, the Osarian reveal, he's like, I know this species. The Trip can't sleep joke with the eels.
Yes.
Malcolm leading the away mission on the derelict ship. Um, even though we didn't detect life signs, we might find something there. Right?
Smart.
They're the experts at space now. Like they started the
Yes.
series not. Now they're the experts. Training another group. I like the firefight in the armory where he is, and
Mm-hmm.
the Trip scene in the mess hall. And then yeah, my final note, I've already kind of mentioned it, but 36 minutes in, we have that conference room scene, and it's glorious
Yep.
because we don't get
Yep.
those often. I mean, I guess the most normal conference room type scene is in the back of the bridge, right? I forget what that's called, around that table, and
And
that's
their
cool.
command center.
In the
Oh no, the
command,
command center's the big
well,
one. The
yeah,
Yeah. Their
I don't know what
bay.
it's
Their
called.
conference
Yeah,
bay.
conference bag, whatever it is, yeah. And that's a cool space. I really like that
Yeah.
space. But anyway, this episode had every character, and really, if you look at season two, when was the last time we had this kind of ensemble?
Yeah.
I can't even I can't even think. I mean, besides Shockwave Part Two,
Dead Stop
Marauders,
had Dead Travis.
Marauders,
Marauders, yeah.
Dead Stop, but Travis still had a part in that episode. Like he had scenes by himself, right? Where he's
Yes.
doing stuff. So
Yes.
Marauders, Dead Stop, Shockwave, but later in the season, it becomes very segmented, the stories.
Yeah.
So it was so fulfilling to have the whole crew involved, and I think that's what was missing in the Xindi as well. Even though there was a lot going on for a lot of people, but it was still we didn't. Travis, I couldn't even say
Yeah,
what he
there's much.
did, right? And Hoshi didn't have much either. And the scope of this episode allowed to have everyone to have a piece too. The scope
Yeah.
of the first one was a lot more small and cramped, and that was the feeling it was going for, right? We're up to our chins and who
In
knows what.
sewage, literally.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So this really was refreshing, and I loved that everyone had something, and more than something, they had a lot to do.
Yeah, you're completely right. And we even have Porthos, who is not in every
Exactly.
episode, but 100% counts as a member of this crew. And I mean, we got the Makos. And like I
Yeah.
called out last time, it's nice to see them doing what they're there to do. And we're feeling like they're kind of becoming part of this family, minus the Reed and Hayes thing, which is its own ball of wax. But this is new people coming in. Of course, when they went back to Earth, some people stayed behind. They got new people.
Yeah.
This is them bringing them into the fold, helping them become the experts too. So you're completely right. This is a gorgeous ensemble episode, and it kind of reminds me of the catwalk. Everybody had a little bit to do
Yes.
in that one too. There's another one from season 2, but you're right. That's halfway through the season. Like it's been a long time since we had one like this where everybody really got to step up and got something juicy.
Yes, exactly. And thank you for reminding me about Porthos, because I'm
Oh, of
definitely
course.
counting him in my calculations, right?
Absolutely. Porthos is one of the things that makes Enterprise Enterprise. So, and come on, I mean, he got extra barking in tonight, right? So we had to count him.
Yeah, and he's back to One Piece.
I was not going there. You brought it up this time. Cut the dog in half again. Dang
No, I brought them back together. We had to do something with that.
I'm going with Phlox has leeches that can like stick him back together. Like, ooh, like really big glue dots, right?
There you go. I like it. Okay.
Accessing library computer data.
Here on First Flight, we love trivia and behind the scenes tidbits, and we pick a few to share about each episode. And I'm going to start tonight. I have a couple that I really like. And, I have talked a couple times in our discussion tonight about Mike Sussman, who is the writer of this episode. But what I really liked when I researched this was that he freely credited many of the ideas in this episode to other writers on the Enterprise
Mm,
writing staff, which is really big of him. Like he noted the concept of the spheres was Andre Bormanis, which does not surprise me at all. That's a
no.
very him kind of thing. And he thought about it like a year or two prior, he said. And he was the one who finally got to bring him in. And he also noticed that the scene with Orgoth in the airlock was actually written by Brown and Braga. Like,
Oh, that's cool.
here we go. We've got, yeah. So, and I really appreciate people
Ah,
who credit the other people that helped them along the way too.
and that makes so much sense that Brandon wrote that torture scene because of all his work on 24 later.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
There you go. Your Jack Bauer connection comes up again.
There you go.
So that was one that I really liked that was definitely heartfelt and kind of a bigger one. And now this one is just flat out silly, but I loved it. So, okay. So sorry if I give anybody an earworm with this one, but the numbers 8675309 appear as an in-joke on the sensor data on the view screen while they track the ion trail of the merchant ship. And that song, 8675309/Jenny, was a huge song back in the 80s by Tommy Tutone. And it has made many references and appearances in popular culture since its release. And here was Star Trek's.
I don't know how you just read those numbers out without singing them. So
It was in my head.
congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't do a lot of singing on mic. So, yes, but I just think that's fun. And you know what? It's nice. Some people say that takes them out of the scenes. I think it's just fun to notice those things. That's the real world kind of creeping in as the writers in jokes.
Yeah, I love it.
All right. So, what do you have for us tonight?
Yeah. Well, in the first draft of this episode, the Osarians were going to be Orions, which makes sense because they were pirates, right?
Yep.
So, episode writer Mike Sussman had intended to show the events in The Expanse that might have been like backstory for why Orions became pirates in the pre-Kirk era. I find that to be really interesting, but I'm glad that wasn't set as canon because all the exploration we've done of the Orions in Lower Decks
Now.
with Tendi
Yeah.
really shows that this is just part of their culture, right? This
Exactly.
pirating. So it was interesting that they were trying to use the prequel in that way, which again, if you are a prequel, do something interesting with it, which that would have been interesting.
Yeah, it would have been. But I agree. I love all the stuff we've gotten with Orions in the past couple of years. I mean, speaking of Tendi and Orion scientists, hey, we
Yeah.
connected to those old scientists again. It's
Exactly.
so cool, that world building. So I'm glad they didn't do it too, but yeah, I like that it was thought of. And I like knowing that they were really thinking about all these other parts of the history
Mhm.
and the canon when they were writing Enterprise. That's cool.
Yeah. So then my next piece of trivia is that this is the first appearance of the Brig set. And this is like one of the upgrades that they got from their time at Earth. They're retrofitting before they went out to the Expanse. So it's cool to first see this Brig, and they make use of it for sure. I couldn't find information, but I want to know, did this, since we don't see the decon chamber anymore, right?
Yeah.
They just replaced that space on the stage with this set. I want to know
Huh.
that. So if someone knows, let me know.
Yeah, I wouldn't know that too. That would make a lot of sense. I mean,
Yeah.
similar sized rooms could easily be redressed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if they're not going to use that decon anymore, and maybe that was intentional, they're like, well, we can't use that anymore because we need the brig because it's more intense. We got to put people in there. That would make sense that they would get rid of that one set. Thank the Lord.
They just put all the sparkles on the undersuits for the EV suits now.
Yes.
Whew.
Okay, so one time Boimler dragged me to the Starship History Museum.
Dragged? You ran up to the doors.
No, I didn't. It was boring. I hated it. Anyway, so they had the NX-01 there, Archer's Enterprise.
Yeah, classic design. Plus it had, the grapplers.
Skip that part. They don't care.
I love grapplers.
See?
Well, it's come to the time for final thoughts and grappler ratings. So, Abby, texting before leading up to our conversation tonight, I was letting you know that I really like this one, and then you didn't really respond much. So I was like, oh, okay. I cannot wait to hear what is your rating with half grapplers applicable. What are you rating this episode?
Well, yet again, I came in with like a range and was hoping that our discussion would kind of pinpoint me down. And here's where I come to. I don't have any major gripes about this episode either. Like I said, they're silly, or they're things that I wish could have been added in. And again, if it was streaming, maybe I would have gotten some of these wishes, maybe not. Maybe it wasn't such a big deal for the writers. There's nothing huge wrong that I dislike about this one. But I also know there are things coming up that I like more. So I'm sitting here going, okay, this one deserves a really good rating because this is a really good episode. And it's also a really good second episode. And sometimes that's hard because first episodes of seasons are usually the end of cliffhangers or big openers. And the second ones, they have to follow all that. And they had a lot to follow. I mean, just the Trillium D was around. So what I come down to is I think that this one gets a solid 8 for me. There are so many things I like. There are so many beginnings, but I also know that as good as this one is, it gets that much better later on. There are other episodes this season, next season that I would definitely, if I was ranking them all in order, put higher than this one. So I'm going to settle on an 8 and know that if I think about this one and come back to it later and I'm like, I haven't stopped thinking about how it connects to everything else in the season, I do get a redo at the end of the season a year from now. But it's an 8, which is a good, solid
it's a great score.
Yeah, it's a really good score. This is a good episode.
Yeah, I started with a score, and then as I watched it more and thought about it, my score kept going up. So I'm at a 9.
Nice.
I try not to think about and adjust my score based off of what's coming. I'm just in this moment, where am I scoring this thing? And if someone asks, show me a highly crafted episode of Star Trek in the third season of Enterprise, this has a lot of everything in it.
Yeah.
Maybe not it does have ethical considerations too, like big time. Just he's not wrestling with them.
Yeah.
But I think it's a top-notch episode of Star Trek. Are there things that are going to be I like more? Probably, but I can't think about them right now. I'm just thinking about in this moment. So 9 for me, 8 for you. I think that means Anomaly is a really good episode of Star Trek.
Absolutely. I would recommend this one as if somebody needs to do Essential season 3, this has to be in there because
Yes.
there's so many pieces. I mean, you could almost skip the first episode and come right to this one and still know what's going on and get what you need for the rest of the season. So yeah, it's a good one.
Absolutely is.
All right, so before we finish this up, let's go through a quick recap of our pros for Anomaly. So, Chris, run us through our picks, including your view screen on and Porthos.
All right, at number 1, it's the Osarian's backstory about how the Expanse changes you. Number 2, it's the pacing of action sequences. There's a lot of them. They're long, but they feel really well paced and shot with low angles. Powerful. Number 3, it's the mystery of the spheres. And my view screen on is the shuttle pod launch to the sphere with the Enterprise's dorsal side facing the camera. And my Porthos pick is just every character has an important and meatier role in this episode. It's truly more of an ensemble than we've gotten in quite a while in Enterprise. So that was a delightful change of pace.
A good list.
Yeah, there's a lot there. All right, let's hear your great list.
All right, so my list was that Crewman Fuller's death was the first real cost to Enterprise, and so that was my number 1 pick. My number 2 pick was Hoshi and Travis save the day, and I just always love that. They would not have this would not have gone as well without the two of them. So bravo to them. My number 3 was all the little pairs of conversations, all the duos we saw that not only moved the story along, but really gave us some of those emotional beats and character moments that we have come to know and love. And it really explores the relationships as much as it does as this story.
Yes.
And my view screen on was right after they are letting the pirates find them, and we start at the front of the ship and we go all the way across the top as it flies away from us, and the sphere goes away in the background. Just absolutely gorgeous ship shot. And my Porthos pick is the score and how it is its own character in this episode, and it's noticeably good.
Absolutely it is.
Do you have your communicator? The people of Suliban we're working for came from about 300 years ago. They couldn't travel through time, but they did develop a way to send back images of themselves, to communicate through time.
You wanted a chance to communicate? I suggest you begin.
Well, we want to remind you, as we've called out a few times in here, we adore getting feedback, thoughts, and answers to our questions from listeners. I would like to point out our friend Monique, who answered a question that we threw out there in the Xindi last episode about Trip's parents. So bravo,
Yeah.
Look for that coming up in our next mailbag, because we asked, she answered. It was gorgeous. So if you have anything that you would like to share with us for our next mailbag show, it's coming up soon. And we always have so much fun talking and discussing with you your insights, your ideas. And we've had so many chats on social media. Please, this is your call. Grappler ratings, Porthos picks, view screen ons, general comments, answers to our queries. Please send them in so you can be part of our mailbag episode fun.
Yeah, we want flippin' Duras. We want Vulcan as a mother effer. We want all of it.
All of the awards.
So please do reach out to us and share any thoughts or smiles that you have for us using the hashtag Carrot Crew. You can reach us at First Flight Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Blue Sky, and Facebook. We're also on YouTube under the Tricorder Transmissions Network. You can email us a 90-second or less voice memo on your thoughts as well, and send it to firstflightpod@gmail.com. You can reach me personally at Shelf Nerds on X and on my YouTube channel, Completing the Shelf. Yeah, Abby, I caught it X. It's really Twitter. It is Twitter. We just
trying
need
to make
switch
X
back.
happen isn't happening.
Yeah, no.
I miss
Abby,
the bird.
Me too. Tweet. That's just such a fun play on words, and we're just tweeting.
Exactly.
It sounds happier.
It was happier.
It was. Well, the corners I spend my time on Twitter are still happy because you're there,
Agreed.
and there's Caleb's there, and Jim's there. There's a lot of people there. Thad. So anyway, find us in those locations. Abby, where can people find you?
Well, ironically, as I was just complaining about X, that is probably still the best place to find me. And I will promise to work this summer on being more active in other places. But you can find me on all the places at Abby M. Summer. That's SOMMER. And I got a couple people hit me up on Threads lately. So you know what? I don't think anyone's really going there. But if you're on Threads, find me on Threads.
Love it. We can weave together our community.
Oh, look at that.
We want to thank you for spending this time with us. We'll be back next time with Extinction, the 3rd episode of Season 3. And as always, we leave you with this quote from Captain Jonathan Archer and your moment of Melanie.
The most profound discoveries are not necessarily beyond that next star. They're within us, woven into the threads that bind us, all of us, to each other.
Whew.
Okay.
That was a big one.
Okay. Quick.
Yeah.
Let's rattle off all the other Star Trek episodes that this episode alludes to or references.
Oh my God.
Right?
There's so many. Yeah.
So Equinox with the captive torture.
Mm-hmm.
Concerning
what are
flight.
the ones we've Yep, the other ones we've already done. We did
And the
we
Void.
did the Void. Yep. All right. So hold on, I'm pulling up my pros again because I had notes.
I'm gonna write under the Archer soundbite. Why? Because I don't know. Concerning flight. Equinox. What was the other one we said? Oh, the Void. So we're all
Void,
it's all Voyager right now.
I was thinking, what's the other one where they use stun grenades? Because it's not just Enterprise. Is that DS9?
Stun grenades. Ooh.
Where's Memory Alpha? Because that one, I was.
AR Battle of
That's what I'm thinking.
AR something or other.
I'm 99% sure that's the one that it's from. And then there's something in the back of my head was do you want to put that the sickbay music sounds like TOS? I don't know. It's not specific, but it's definitely like TOS scoring. If you wanted to throw that in there. We've referenced 8 tons of lower decks in this as well.
Yeah. I don't know if this counts, but in Descent Part 1 and 2, when the Enterprise goes through the distortion field thing. Or is that the transwarp conduit? I always forget because it doesn't look like what a transwarp conduit later
ends up looking like later.
Yeah. Is that what that is though?
Yes, I believe that is. And then what's the other one where we see a ship bounce off of
Janolan.
a giant space object?
Isn't it the Janolan?
Yeah, that's true.
Right? In Relics?
In Relics.
Which is, a big sphere in space too.
Exactly. I was going to say anything with a Dyson sphere.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot though, but it's interesting. And I'll think of more in an hour and text you, and then you can throw it in wherever or however. But it was interesting because I was thinking about when I was doing Face the Strange, how many different episodes it reminded me of, but I'm not mad about it. And then I'm also wondering, whenever Modern Trek comes back and references or feels like another episode, how many people went back and watched Move Along Home after they got stuck? I watched Shattered in the past couple days. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of it's interesting. I wonder how we watch the spikes or the First Duty after all of that with Nick Picarno. I would like to see those stats of how many people then went back and watched the connected episode. I just think it would be fascinating because all of us nerds are.
I mean, I went back and saw the Arsenal of Freedom, which was really good.
Yes.
I haven't seen that in forever.
Okay, so you know how I did a Loxana rewatch of all her episodes, a month or two ago? And then I watched the Arsenal of Freedom. So I've watched Haven and the Arsenal of Freedom from the first season, like very recently. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe I do need to go back and watch season 1 of TNG because I haven't done a full season rewatch there. And then I got back to the same thing we were talking about before we were recording. Like, what was the episode of Star Trek I haven't seen for the longest time? And then I'm like, I don't want to watch Code of Honor. But like, if I'm doing a dedicated, I know, but
time is short. Life is precious.
I know there are moments in that episode still that like, there are always moments, but yeah, that could be the episode that I haven't seen for the longest for a long time, and I don't think I'd be upset.
Yeah.
So you know what? I also do not watch The Thaw very often because it creeps me out. Like, it really creeps. I have a hard time sleeping for days after that one. So it is incredibly good, but it does bad things to my brain.
It's not fun to watch. No. I don't find it entertaining. The reason you watch that episode is the final moment.
Yes.
So 100%. Those final moments are incredible. Classic Janeway.
Yeah.
But it's not enough for me to sit through the rest of it.
No, like I don't like it. And here's another funny one. I don't rewatch The Shoot very often because I don't like seeing Tom and Harry like that. Like it just it's so hard for me to watch. It's so hard.
It's such
a
good one though. It really is. Good. And like, but yeah, you're right.
I will watch that one, but it's really hard. And another funny one I don't watch very often is from Voyager again is The Cloud, but that's because I watched that episode for the first time after my whole family was in a bad car accident when I was in high school, and like I was in the hospital and my mom was in surgery, and like it happened to be on, and I watched it, and I remember thinking, I need to watch this again when I'm actually paying attention because I wasn't, but I had a really hard time going back to it just because that was in my life the first time that it popped in. And so I have since gotten over that, but isn't it interesting how those things all come together like that?
I think that's an underrated episode, really. It's
got a lot of good stuff in there.
Yeah. And I love Neelix's like, how are we going to get anywhere if we just go after all the things that are going to kill us? I love that. He's wrong. He's not wrong.
He's not wrong. Early Neelix is a really interesting character. So different. And talk about growth again. Yes. So different.
Yeah. Yeah. He's not my favorite flavor of Neelix, but he does come up with moments like that are really good.
Yep. Yep. Well, he says a lot of the things that we're thinking as the audience sometimes. And that's really important to have somebody like that in a story.
Or he's poking holes at Star Trek tropes.
Yeah, that too.
Which is it's very important too.
It is.
Yeah. We have a whole series that does that. Lower Decks.
And we love it.
Absolutely do. All right, so we're gonna expand on that episode. The brain, like I just got dizzy, like I lost everything in my brain.
It's because I talked about cutting Porthos.
Yeah,
that was me. Sorry.
You got some Andorian ale in there or something?
No. It's
Aldebaran whiskey.
No, whiskey and I are no longer friends.
No. Well, I want to say Aldebaran because of the leeches.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It is green.
It is.
All right. I just say that in my house sometimes when there's something green happening, and no one in my house knows what I'm talking about. And I know that I'm referencing 2 series of Star Trek in that moment.
Which makes you feel really cool, and everyone else just is like,
Okay.
All right. Back on track again. Who am I kidding? I'm going to be awake at 4 going, I should just get up and watch it because now I'm awake and laying here and thinking, go back to sleep when really I should just get up and watch it.
Mm-hmm.
I have no
Yeah.
self-control with Discovery. None at all.
She has no control.
I have lost all
No, she has
control.
lost all control. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's one episode I try not to watch a lot because I just want to save it. But
It's
been a while since I've seen Wedge Douche.
Yeah. I think I watched it. I was watching for something else. Maybe I was prepping for my last Trek ranks and I was thinking about throwing something in there and I didn't. But it's funny when Lower Decks got announced that it was ending. I felt this need to like watch my comfort episode from each season, and oh my god, you making people pick one comfort episode from the entire series. I can't do that. It hurts me. Like I can't. I thought about it a lot. I'm like I can do one a season.
Binding. It's just a
I know
thought
it's
exercise.
not. I know, and I really that worked because I thought a lot about it. But I was going through and I was.
I want to see your
like,
list.
Okay, I'll send you a big list at some point. That's a fun challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, it was fun just to think about it. And then like I was like, oh, I'm gonna do every series, every season. I can't stop.
Yeah. I mean, you've had a good run on Twitter of interesting things to think about. We'll just put it that way.
I feel like I've not really been active on there lately, besides those random things.
Yeah, but they're really good random things.
Well, that's good. I have within me a Reno and Shaw. I know, I do. Micro Trek. It's just I don't have the time to sit and do it because once I start it, I don't stop until I hit post. Like it's all
awesome.
stream of consciousness. That's how they come out. Because especially the way Reno talks, it has to be quick.
Yeah. Yes. Well, okay, but then I have to go, okay, do I pick that one or do I pick Spock Amok? Which, like, if I had to go down to one, those are the two that I really, really enjoy. Just for, like, these, I can watch these and they're just always good and they're always happy. But then Charades is popping up there now, too. I really enjoyed that one as well. Like,
and then Subspace Rhapsody.
Exactly. So, like, I don't even know. It's so hard.
That's a comfort series.
Yeah. It really is.
After Lower Decks announcement of it being canceled or not renewed, whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, I got to go back to the beginning. So I went through all of season 1, and it is a clunkier season. It's not as consistent, but some great moments that I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Everything builds off of. But then I'm like, all right, I gotta do some Deep Space Nine. So I'm going through now Deep Space Nine season 2.
Oh, I'm doing
Just
that
doing
with
seasons.
Green Shirt as they go through it. So I'm watching one every other week with them because they're doing their season 7 of TNG and then the episode of DS9 that was on at the same time because they overlapped at that point the following week. So they usually have a week off in between, but now every week you're either getting TNG season 7 or DS9 season 2, and it's been so fun. And Delta Flyers is going to get there really soon. So I mean, they just did the end of season 1.
Yeah, I just finished listening to In the Hands of the Prophets. What a great podcast. That was so good.
Yeah, I agree. It was long too.
It was
I like
long.
that.
Yes, indeed. Robbie's take that there was too many mystery, like cop episodes. I guess that's true, but the station's a city.
Right.
Exactly. It's a little city. That's the nature of it. So I liked Terry's point about you have to earn going through the wormhole.
Yeah.
By getting to know the characters and the whole premise of the series. But it just made me appreciate that first season a lot more and how it fits within the whole series. So
yeah, no, I completely agree. I think that it's one of those things that, and it's been enough time and there's been enough other analysis. This is just that piece that kind of brings in both the story and like the obvious stuff, but also the behind the scenes and the directorial stuff, which I really appreciate. Like, it's a really full picture when they go through it, and that's really nice.
Well, listening to Delta Flyers has really helped my eye with direct. Like, that's going to come up when we talk about Anomaly.
Interesting.
Because there's some amazing direction in Anomaly, I think. So I wanted to re-listen to the episode one more time just for music. But
oh my God, it's so good. It's really good.
Yeah, it stood out to me too. All right, let's talk about this episode.
Yeah, let's do this.
I have broken down and I have a Discovery Season 3-4 uniform on the way. I was like, I just gotta do it. I have to do it for this last season. Like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, I had to. So I'm excited. Because I have the comm badge, but then you have to buy the weird pip chevron thing that goes at the center of their neck, which is kind of weird. But
it looks really good, but it is kind of weird.
It does, yeah. I like that Jet has like one that splits in the middle.
She's the only one in the whole universe who gets to be able to unzip besides Mariner. So I've been rocking that.
Suddenly more relevant because of Face the Strange.
I know. I'm so glad that was the one I got to talk about at Infinite Diversity because it was so much fun.
It was made for you.
It was just, yeah.
It was designed for you. Yeah.
Well, it was funny because Chrissy and Thad said when they were talking about who to plan out where, Thad's like, I actually said to Chrissy, this is Abby's episode because she's really going to like it. I was like, oh, that makes my heart so happy. I'm predictable.
Well, he's setting you up to succeed, right?
Yeah. Well, I got the Vulcan hijinks episode of Strange New Worlds last season too, which is also perfect. So it's fun to have friends who let you come and really geek out. Like, I mean, you're always going to geek out on a Star Trek podcast, but like when they pick you for specific ones, then you know you can really deep dive that nerddom.
By the way, we get to make another ball reference because there's a giant ball in space in this episode.
There's a whole bunch of balls in space in the Expanse.
Yeah, there are.
Balls
in space.
Oh my God. All right.
Let's go.
This is not going to go well if we... Yeah. All right. Here we go.